everyone, my name is Annette, and you might know me on social media as Nettersplays. The other day I posted a question. I asked, which galaxy do you prefer? Now, do you prefer Race for the Galaxy, or do you prefer Roll for the Galaxy? Now, they're two different games, and I don't necessarily want to go over how to play both of them. I just wanted to go over the feedback that you guys gave me as far as which one you prefer. Also, I wanted to go ahead and compare and contrast the two and give you my thoughts. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Well, let's talk about the artwork and components in both Race and Roll for the Galaxy. Now, as you can see in both of these games, well, they're similar simply because they're from the same artist. And you don't notice it just from the cover, but you also notice it from the cards. So as you can see, the cards and the tiles have exactly the same artwork. So as far as artwork is concerned, it's the same thing. But for the component quality, well, for the Race you get a whole deck of cards, and you get a player aid too, the rule book, of course. You get these victory point chips. Now, you get these also in Roll for the Galaxy, but you also get these little meeple guys. You also get a bag full of these tiles. You get a whole bunch of cups. You get a bag full of dice, pretty ones. And also you get a player shield. You get a whole bunch of components in Roll for the Galaxy. But as far as quality is concerned, I think they're both great. Well, let's talk about the game length in Race for the Galaxy. It says it takes 30 to 60 minutes to play. Now, I believe that's true as long as you're playing with experienced players. It can even be faster than that. After all, it is a Race for the Galaxy. Now, with Roll for the Galaxy, it says it plays in 45 minutes. I've actually found it to play a lot faster than that. So, as far as game length is concerned, in both games, they're both very quick. So, you can get through them in less than an hour. Next comes scalability and player count. So with Race for the Galaxy, it plays 2 to 4 players. I actually prefer to play with this either 2 players or maybe even 3 players. 4 players, I would only really play it if all players know what they're doing, if they're all experienced. Now with Race for the Galaxy, it plays 2 to 5 players, and it doesn't necessarily matter if everyone's experienced or not. I find it to play well with all player counts. Okay, next let's talk about the interactiveness between players in both Race and Roll for the Galaxy. Now, I think this is the same for both games, because what you're doing is you're basically working in your own galaxy. You're trying to develop it, or you're trying to settle it, or you're exploring different planets and so on. So what you're doing is mainly solo play. However, you cannot forget what your opponent is doing. You need to take into consideration whether they're going to explore or whether they're going to do something else, because if they explore, so are you. If you develop, they're going to develop. So you need to take into consideration what will be efficient for you and what won't be efficient for them. So there is a lot of interactivity between players in both Race and Roll for the Galaxy. Well, next let's talk about the audience appeal of Race for the Galaxy and Roll. So in Race for the Galaxy, you have a huge deck of cards with a lot of information, a lot of icons on them, so it might not attract a lot of people. However, with Roll for the Galaxy, I find that this attracts a huge audience simply because you're chucking dice, you're putting them in cups, and you're slamming them on tables, and so you're getting a lot more people attracted to all that colorfulness and loudness of the gameplay in Roll. Okay, well, another thing I wanted to talk about is the difficulty of both games. So not only the difficulty of learning, but also the difficulty of teaching both games. So for Race for the Galaxy, a lot of people said on Instagram that it was actually a lot harder to understand what is going on in this game, and that they've been intimidated because of the iconography in this game. I can understand that. I think there's a lot of information involved on these cards, but not just that, you're also having all these options on these phase cards available each turn. So with Roll for the Galaxy, it kind of cuts down on what options you have, because you're rolling the dice, and whatever the face value is on that die, you actually have only that option to do. Of course, you have ways of manipulating that face value, but actually it's a lot easier to understand, instead of having all options available, it kind of cuts down on your options. So in that case, it's a lot easier to introduce this game to newer players. But I don't want to discourage people from actually giving this a try, simply because Race for the Galaxy is fantastic. I mean, it's such a fast game to play. Of course, you're going to have to play it not once, maybe not twice, but on the third play, you should start understanding what is going on and how to be efficient with your game. So you do have to give this a little bit more time. There is a higher learning curve, but it's a fantastic game. So Roll for the Galaxy, it's easier to teach, it's easier to understand. Race for the Galaxy, there's a higher learning curve, but they're both fantastic games. Well, next let's talk about the replay value and the randomness of both games. I feel like they go both hand in hand, simply because if a game is random enough, then no two games are going to be alike, so it'll create a high replay value. Now, with Race for the Galaxy, you're dealing these cards and you're drawing from them from this huge deck, so that creates some sort of randomness. Now, the way to manipulate that randomness is by having these phase cards where you get to pick and choose what you're going to do this turn. You can either pick and choose to explore or settle or develop based on what cards you have in hand and how they're going to be beneficial to you. So that's a way of manipulating that randomness in Race for the Galaxy. In Roll for the Galaxy, you have randomness in the dice. Each colored dice produces a different probability of randomness. And also, when you're drawing from this bag of tiles, you're going to draw these tiles, and either you're going to settle or you're going to develop. So there's either these diamonds or these circles. Now that produces some sort of randomness on top of the rolls. But a way to manipulate the dice roll is by dictating. So you can actually use one dice to change the value of another. You're not going to be very efficient, but you're actually manipulating that face value to your benefit. So that's a way of manipulating the die roll. And also, when you're drawing from the bag, you can actually decide what you want to pick because they're double-sided. You have to do one or the other, but you can manipulate that draw from the bag. So that's pretty interesting. And because of that randomness in both games, no two games are going to be alike in either one. So there's a huge replay value. So that's great in both games. Okay, another thing I wanted to go over is the game mechanics of both Race and Roll. So they have a similar game mechanic where you're doing simultaneous selection. So everyone is going to pick and choose what they want to do behind either the cards or behind a blind. And then we just disclose, like we show everyone what we're going to do. And so that's simultaneous selection, and it's involved in both games. However, I wanted to make note in Race for the Galaxy, it's a little different because in both games you have to do one before the other. So you explore before you develop, before you settle. However, in Race for the Galaxy, you're going to go ahead and consume before you produce. So in order to consume, you got to make sure you have some sort of production available on your cards. So it's going to take an extra turn in Race for the Galaxy. Now in Roll for the Galaxy, you produce before you consume. So you can actually be very productive in Roll for the Galaxy. It's a little bit easier to play out those moves. Now, because of that, I believe that Race for the Galaxy takes a little bit more planning ahead. So that makes it a little bit more strategic in my book as far as gameplay is concerned. So strategy base, I would give it to Race for the Galaxy. And Roll for the Galaxy still has a little bit of strategy, but not as much because of that little change in the game mechanic. Another important thing that I wanted to go over is the price. So in Race for the Galaxy, you can get this game for about $20, $25, whereas Roll for the Galaxy, you get it for twice as much. Now, Race for the Galaxy, it actually only has a deck of cards. It has some cardboard and some paper and such. It's a lot easier to produce, so it makes sense that it's a lot cheaper. because in Roll for the Galaxy, you're getting all those dice, you're getting those cups, the bag, the tiles, you're getting a lot more stuff in it. So it makes sense why one is more expensive than the other. Okay, well, lastly, I wanted to go over the expansions for both Race and Roll for the Galaxy. Now, Race for the Galaxy has been around for a long time, so it makes sense that it has a lot of expansions. And Roll for the Galaxy only has one expansion so far. Now, I'm not going to go over whether they play well with them or not because I haven't played with them all. But I did want to make note that there are expansions for both games, which is pretty awesome in my books. Alright everyone, well I hope you enjoyed that, and I wanted to just go over the comparison between the two, whether they're similar or different and how so. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and in the end, I'm not saying that one game is better than the other. They're both great games. So it's all a matter of preference. I mean, what do you like in your game? And it's all up to you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, just give me a like. If you want to see more videos like this, just go ahead and subscribe. I'll start posting them more. But if you also want to make note, mention something else, or anything, if you want to leave a comment, just go ahead and do so right below. So thanks again for paying attention and giving me this time, and I'll see you later. Bye, guys.